Thanks, everyone. Not exactly the context that I expected to be presenting in this evening, but regardless, I want to thank everyone at VIVO for opening this space, and I think that regardless of how we see things, and regardless of how we feel about what's happening tonight, it's really important that this discussion is happening on our own terms right now. So thank you to the folks at VIVO, and also thank you to everyone from the Olympics Resistance Network who made this weekend of convergence possible, and thank you to all the volunteers from the Vancouver Media Cooperative who are with us this evening. I want to say that I walked unmasked on Saturday alongside the Black Bloc, and that I taped some of the actions that happened. And at one moment I got separated from the Black Bloc because the police did use, they had massive weapons, and I think calling them a peace officer is ridiculous. It's part of the Orwellian language. It's part of the Orwellian language that is becoming more and more common now, where it's basically say one thing and do the exact opposite. Regardless, so the Black Bloc folks were kind of isolated, and I ended up trapped with a bunch of people who had walked unmasked along with that march on that day. And there was a CTV reporter, bleached blonde hair, just like all made up and stuff, and she had her microphone and she was getting in everyone's face, and what she was saying is, "Why are you so angry? Why are you so angry?" And so, and I'm supposed to be media, and we normally shouldn't be commenting on things, but I said to her, "We are here because this is stolen land, and the reason that this happened today is because this is stolen land, and this convergence was called as an anti-capitalist, anti-colonial." And what I said is, if you don't put that on TV, then you're a fucking liar. Like, I had a lot of adrenaline, right? And I said this on camera, and I said, if you don't put that on TV, you're a fucking liar. But that's why we're here. And of course they didn't put it on TV, to no surprise. And so that's going to be sort of my intro to just what I want to very briefly discuss this evening, which is the role of the Vancouver Media Cooperative moving forward in Vancouver. And I think that we do have a role to play in the city, and that we didn't set up just to be part of this convergence and to act as a means of communication during the convergence, but we actually are here in the city, and we want to remain here permanently. And I think that one of the roles that we can have is actually this idea of enabling horizontal communication. And I'm going to borrow some ideas from Robert Hackett, who is a professor of communications at Simon Fraser University. And he talks about 3 specific things the media can do in order to enable sort of a radical or deep democracy. He talks about the role of media in enabling horizontal communications between subordinate groups, including social movements, as agents of democratic renewal. He talks about the role of media in expanding the scope of public awareness and political choice by reporting events and voices which are socially important but outside or even opposed to the agendas of elites. And the third is counteracting power inequalities found in other spheres of the social order. And he quotes someone saying, "Unless communication and information are biased towards equality, they tend to enhance social inequality." I think it's important, again, like I said, that we're here tonight and we're having this discussion, this debate on our own terms. I think that the role that hopefully the Vancouver Media Cooperative can have going forward is enabling horizontal communications between different people who are part of these movements, that we shouldn't be talked down to constantly by the mainstream media, that we shouldn't gauge success of actions through the mainstream media, because if that's what we did, if that is how we're going to gauge our success, then dropping a banner off a bridge for half an hour with the permission of the integrated security unit and rolling it back up and putting it away would be considered a success, and I don't think that's acceptable. I think that we need to gauge our success in discussions with each other and really build this movement beyond just PR stunts and public relations. For example, in the environmental side of what's happened around the Olympics is that it's become very clear that land defenders and grassroots people who are actually fighting environmental destruction in their communities have since the beginning stood with Olympic resistance movement and denounced everything that's happening on their territories or in their backyards and this highway expansion and all this shit that's happening, and all of the funded groups. And that was at one point kind of realizing all the groups that are receiving money have really shut their mouth around the Olympics. Yeah. And the people who don't have money and the people who are coming from a grassroots perspective have been willing to speak out. And so we see now, and you know, we see that like Greenpeace, for example, has just named Sephora Berman as their chief climate campaigner. And this is a woman who is shaking hands with Gordon Campbell, like Harjap said. It's like the resistance to the Olympics has allowed us to see these contradictions and to really realize who our allies are in this movement. And I just think that it's vital that we do not allow our discussions and the success of our actions and the reflections that we're having around our movements to be mediated by the mainstream media. That's the very last thing that I want to touch on is basically the media structure. So, and I think it's almost something that has been ignored in some way by the resistance movements to the Olympics, but the way the International Olympic Committee actually makes most of their money is through selling broadcasting rights. That is really their cash cow, and it's by far the largest revenue source that they have, selling exclusive broadcasting rights to national broadcasters around the world. And at this point, you know, CTV is the national broadcaster here in Canada of the Olympics, and NBC in the US. And what I feel like we're seeing right now is that basically CTV, VANOC, and the cops are like one entity. It's one entity. They have full consolidation. And so we know that CTV is giving footage to the cops, and we know that the cops are responding directly to the needs and desires of VANOC. And I just feel that having had so many discussions with progressive people about like how is it that the right wing, even though they have divisions within them, are managed to be so coherent and somehow gain a united position. And I feel like that has a lot to do with, when you look at this example, you have VANOC, the cops, and CTV. They've fully consolidated their media along with the different elements of society, and that's something that we have sort of been told as you know, I'm a student at UBC and doing a master's of journalism, and like this idea of objectivity, and I think that alternative journalists take that a lot more to heart than mainstream journalists, because we want to really try to be objective, and we want to really try to, you know, represent things as truly as possible. But what we really need to do is actually, hopefully with the Vancouver Media Cooperative, is move towards a space where our media space is active directly with the social movements, and that we're helping with the consolidation and discussion that's going to be happening within our movement so that we can actually move things forward. So I just want to encourage everyone to check out the Vancouver Media Co-op. You know, it's an open platform. Everyone in this room is able to create an account and post their article. And that we want to create a space for reflection so that we're not going to be depending on the mainstream media to tell us whether a broken window is the same thing as, you know, killing somebody or whatever kind of ridiculous thing about this violence. I mean, it's just, you know, after Saturday, after the march, they left those windows just sitting there, and there was just a feeding frenzy by the mainstream media that were just coming out and gorging on these windows with this delicious feast of anarchist vandalism that they could put all over their newscasts or whatever. But the thing is, it's not separate from the movement, and they have not been willing to actually take the time. I mean, we have put out so much information. The Olympics Resistance Network has done the same thing, and like through the Dominion and the Vancouver Media Cooperative, so many reasons why there is this dissent. And of course, the mainstream media is not going to go there. They are COP TV, CTV. So I think I'm going to end with that.